Hey, Scott Sambucci here. You're listening to the Startup Selling Show, talking sales with Scott Sambucci. That's me. If you've been listening to the show for a while, you know that's a little bit of a different intro than what you're used to. Here's why. This is a little bit of a different episode, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a backdrop here so you have some context as to why I'm sharing this particular episode. So, in this episode, it turns out I'm not the one doing the interviewing, I'm the one getting interviewed. And the person who's interviewing me is a guy named Neil Fontenot. Chances are you don't know Neil. Maybe you do if you're connected to him on LinkedIn. The reason I'm sharing this episode is because Neil did something I think is really important for all of us right now. I know there's a lot of people out there in the sales world that were put in a position where they just don't have a job anymore. And Neil was one of those people. My the work that I've been doing over the last couple months, in particular, with the COVID situation, obviously we're out there every day working with startups and helping them to stabilize and grow their businesses, especially in this environment that we're in. And that all that being said, one of the things that I wanted to do is try to help as many people as I could, as much as possible. And so on a couple of LinkedIn posts over the last few weeks, especially ones where they were posts around jobs that were available or how people could find some work, I've tried to make it a point to offer some help. And the help that I could offer might not be, might not be the stepping stone to the next job, but maybe it's a short call with somebody to help them think through some of the challenges that they've got ahead of them. Maybe it's just sending them an article. Maybe it's just introducing them to somebody else. My thinking and my thoughts on this is that anything I could do to help someone else in the situation for people that might be having a hard time with these unexpected environmental changes, then it's a pay it forward sort of thing. I've had plenty of people that have helped me throughout my life and throughout my 25-year career. And if there's something I could do to help someone else, I think I owe it to them and owe it to the next person who could also offer some help. And I've had a couple of people take me up on that, Neil being one of them. And the way I got to know Neil is that we had connected on LinkedIn back earlier this year. I'd come across the company I'd been working with, saw he was running the sales there, and just reached out and said hello and introduced myself, and we connected. And over the course of a couple of weeks, he signed up for one of our weekly office hour calls. And he wasn't able to join one of those office hour calls in March. And I just followed up with him and said, "Hey, Neil, saw that you had signed up but weren't able to join us. Let me know if there's anything you need." And he shared some news with me, which is, look, it turns out I don't have a job right now. So I'm kind of scrambling and trying to figure out what happens next. And so we swapped some emails back and forth over the course of a week or so. And this is where I got really impressed with what Neil is doing. And this is one of the reasons I want to share this episode with you, because Neil looked at the situation and said, look, I'm going to be entering this new phase of my career, my job search, and I've decided to start a short podcast. And so of all the things that he could be doing, he's out there looking for jobs. He's got a family at home. He's not sitting around and saying, like, I hope that somebody finds me or hopes that somebody finds my resume or my LinkedIn profile to be interesting when I submit to a job. He's being really proactive. And in fact, the theme of his podcast is how everything is right, like that everyone is going to be okay. And even though we're going through some tough times, there are some basic tools and techniques that all of us can deploy that maybe in their biggest struggle that they could put some of those tools to work, and it would help to work through those struggles. And so Neil was kind enough to ask me if I would join him as one of his guests, and that's what led to this particular interview. So this is a case where I'm being interviewed as opposed to doing the interviewing. And the reason I wanted to share this particular episode is that he and I covered a lot of really important topics that are outside of the normal spectrum of what we covered here in the Startup Selling Show. He asked me questions like, what's working for me right now? And we talked about the importance of routine. He asked me how some of our clients are dealing with the situation. How are they approaching this outbreak of volatility and uncertainty in the marketplace? We talked about different strategies for how you could look for a new job. How can you add value to people and the environment around you? Stuff that Neil's doing every single day. And so after my interview on his new podcast, he shared this audio file with me. And I decided that I'm going to post this because I feel like our conversation, the conversation Neil and I had about where things are and what you could be doing every day, is too important of a conversation for you to miss. And so if you're, whether you are, truly struggling or just slowing in this current environment, maybe you're stable and you're accelerating, whatever your situation is, I want to be able to offer whatever kind of help I can. Sometimes that's, a couple of ideas that you might hear on a podcast episode. Maybe that's a book that I've written. Maybe that's a call that we can do. Maybe it's training and coaching and all the other stuff. There's all kinds of ways that we help people here, and all kinds of ways I'd like to help people as much as I can in their work and their life. And so, so that's it. That's the backdrop of this particular episode. It's a little bit different, like I said, than normal, and I wanted to share it with you. And so if you want to check out Neil and his podcast, just go over to his LinkedIn profile. His last name is Fontenot, Neil, Neil, Neil Fontenot. And check him out on LinkedIn and check out some of the stuff that he's publishing out there. He's been taking the interviews that he's been doing with people like me and cutting them up into small snippets, sharing them on his LinkedIn profile. He's a really good dude. Like I said, I didn't know him very well at all until we started engaging in some email conversation, and then of course in our podcast. So I now consider Neil a friend. I'm glad that we're able to get to know each other in this environment. Certainly not the best of circumstances for him and I to create this new relationship that we have. But if there's something in this content, in this conversation that I had with him that would be useful for you, or maybe there's one person that you know of that is either struggling or really slowed down by the situation and just needs a boost, or there's an idea or two here that maybe that one person could use and leverage for their daily work and their next steps in their career, then I would truly appreciate it if you could share this episode with that person. So that's it for now. That's the way this episode is going to run. So a little bit of, different context, different structure. We're just going to share with you basically the raw file that Neil shared with me. The first couple seconds is just sort of me getting my headphones on and getting some context for the conversation, getting into a flow. But after that, he asked me questions and I did my very best to answer them. Thanks so much for listening to the Startup Selling Show, Talking Sales with Scott Sambucci. That's me. I do appreciate it. I appreciate the reviews. I appreciate the comments. I appreciate seeing that the listenership's gone up and the subscribership has gone up. All of those numbers, because we do work really hard to bring you that content. Usually it's us finding people to interview, and in this case, it's us and me getting interviewed. So thanks for listening. Please share this episode with one person that you think could use the help. And that's it for now.
So Scott, what's working for you right now? Is there something that you've found that it could be business wise or personal wise? Everybody seems to focus on things that aren't working or things that aren't going right. Like, what's going right in your life? Because I think a lot of people really like to hear about that.
Yeah. So the one thing that's working for me right now is routine. So I'm a very routine, very disciplined person on a daily basis. And so I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. As soon as I wake up in the morning, first thing I do is turn on the coffee pot that was made last night. I sit down and I do half an hour of morning pages. I meditate for 10 to 20 minutes, and then I start working at 6. And I work from 6 until about 7:30. Then my wife and son get up, help with breakfast, and then I do the rest of the day. And I found that just sticking to that day, even if I am working late and I wish I would have gotten more sleep and I would go to bed at 11 and I'm waking up at 5 and I only got 6 hours. I tell myself at 5 when either the alarm goes off or I wake up that time in the morning is the most important time of the day for me, because it's the 1 hour of the day where it's complete quiet. I can just sit and focus on what am I working on, what's ahead for the day, what do I need to do to have a productive day, business-wise, family-wise, and personally.
Yeah.
And so just running through that and then having my day. And then I make sure, one thing I'm really proud about is over the last, I think it's been 3 weeks, 21 days, I've exercised every day for 21 days. And that exercise usually comes late afternoon, somewhere between 4 and 6 o'clock. Get some outside time with my son. I open up the garage door. He's skateboarding or scootering or doing something. And I spend 20 or 30 minutes in the garage just doing some kind of workout. And it completely resets me and helps me sleep soundly. Even if it's a short amount of sleep, I sleep well. And then I just go through the next day. So sticking to that routine has really, really helped me keep cranking out at a high productivity rate, as well as stay like patient and present and focused at home.
Okay. Is that different than what it was like 2 months ago?
The biggest difference in compared to that is the exercise routine is shorter. I use, I have a gym in my garage with, some weights and kettlebells and things. And normally I'm training for ultra marathons. So, a lot of times in the afternoon, it might mean a 5 or 10 mile run. Or if I'm doing some workouts in the garage, it might be an hour and a half in the garage. And right now I'm doing, like, the last 2 days, I did a 17-minute workout. Like, I put a timer on the clock. I said for 17 minutes, I'm going to do as many reps as I can of kettlebell swings and box jumps and pull-ups and deadlifts or whatever.
Yeah.
And I just do 17 minutes until I'm spent. And then I'm usually like looking at my phone and it says like I have 5 minutes to go. And I'm like, crap, I still got 5 more minutes. So I'm just like I'm doing like the minimal effectiveness. Tim Ferriss calls it the minimal effective dose of exercise, because I leave those 17 minutes like completely spent and sweating and like mentally completely reset, and physically the rush of adrenaline and serotonin and everything else makes for the rest of the evening. Making dinner, time with my son, watching Mythbusters, getting some more work done at night. It's like a separation of first part of the day and second part of the day.
Okay. Is that a different routine for your son?
Yeah, the routine for my son is way different in that, one, he's home instead of at school.
Yeah, right.
And so, usually he's in school till 2-3 o'clock, and then we have usually have somebody come pick him up from school, a caretaker, which obviously we can't do that now. And so he's home all day. And so my wife and I are balancing time with him, trying to get him to do some schoolwork, just trying to be understanding that, he's an only child. And so he's, frankly, he hasn't expressed it, but I know he's probably pretty lonely sometimes. I mean, we do everything we can in the time that we can spend with him. And I spend a lot of time with him, more time now than I've spent with him on a daily basis than probably in the last couple of years, because around 3 or 4 o'clock, I shut off work for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And then I hang out with him until 8, 9 o'clock at night when it's bedtime. So we spend, a good block of time together that we weren't doing before. So that's definitely different. And he's not doing activities with friends, and he's not doing outside time with, he's not doing rock climbing. He's not doing jujitsu, because all that stuff is closed.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm a dad as well. And I think that's one of the biggest things that people are having to adjust to is just the, how do you make a new routine for, it's like, it's one thing if you're pretty psyched about getting up, doing your thing, taking care of yourself, exercising, but like other people in our family, this isn't in their control, like they'd rather be out seeing their friends or, doing other things, but they have to have a new routine. How did you fall into this? Like, did you sit down with them and talk, say like, okay, you're not going to school, this is the new schedule, or like, how are you? And then I think a lot of parents are also trying to figure out how they're going to balance the work, because they have goals at work, or they, they're expected to, or maybe they beat themselves up that like, okay, well, I can't spend this amount of time with my son is struggling with being on a Zoom call from homeschooling, but I got my own stuff too, and I don't know how to balance that. So it sounds like that you're at least finding some kind of rhythm. How did you do that?
Definitely not finding a rhythm. I mean, you're making it sound good. I mean, a couple things based on what you just shared, Neil. Like, number one, I'm usually not psyched every day. Like, I'm not psyched to wake up at 5 a.m. most days. I just do it because I know I like that's the best thing for me. I'm not psyched about doing kettlebell swings at 4:30 in the afternoon because I'm freaking a combination of fatigue, but like wired from coffee all day. It's not fun to like go out there and think about, I got to go swing this thing 100 times. I just do it because like it's the discipline of it that I know the end result is better than if I do those things, even if I don't want to do them. So it's not even so much that I'm psyched. It's just that I know the discipline of it is important to the routine. As far as, my son and explaining what happened, he's 8 years old, and he seems to be a pretty smart kid, and he just sort of gets it. He knew from the day school was shut down. He's like, okay, well, school's shut down because of coronavirus, and him and his friends were made up a song about coronavirus even before. That's like, coronavirus is really bad, and just kind of like, I don't know, like he knew what was going on, and he knows what's going on right now. He knows things are shut down, and sometimes he has a friend down the street, and they'll go out and play together, like they'll scooter together or something at a social distance and just kind of hang out. And he knows, like, hey, you're getting too close, or like his friend has a younger sister. The sister's 3 or 4 years old, so she isn't as aware, and say, hey, you're getting too close, or he'll step away, or people are walking down the street and he knows to get out of the way. So he gets it. He knows what's going on. He knows it's a new world. He did ask me yesterday, when do you think we can get on an airplane again and go somewhere? So like he's feeling this sense of like, there's a constraint to what we can do. And my answer is like, we don't know, maybe this summer, probably not. Could be the fall. Could be longer.
Yeah.
But for now, this is the way things are. And I think overall, like, we have some good days and bad days, and good hours and bad hours. But I think overall, he's adjusted remarkably well, like better than I would have thought. So, we just sort of sit down with him and keep him, try to do the why, like why this is important, or hey, you can do screen time, but I'm going to make dinner, and in 20 minutes, I'm going to come up, let you know the screen time is going to be over in 10 minutes. So I give him 10-minute warning, 5-minute warning, and just try to keep managing expectations and giving him the why behind stuff. Like last night after dinner, I was like, let's go for a walk. And he really didn't want to. I said, we're going for a walk. And I sort of forced him out the door. And we walked around the neighborhood for a mile or two, and it was, we had a good talk. It was fun. It was good that we went. So I think we're just trying to stay present and give him a reason for stuff. So, and the third part about your question is about like balancing work and home. And like my wife is a PhD economist. She's doing, she's a PhD from UC Davis in agricultural resource economics. It's like one of the top programs in the world. And she's working on some really hard stuff. She's doing research papers right now. And like, at least my work, I can jump on a call for 30 minutes and then go get coffee. Like for her to get anything done, she needs 2, 3, 4 hours, like a block of time to do deep work. And it's really hard. And, she feels like, I'm not doing as good as I could be, or I don't have the time to focus on these things. And my thing is like, look, we're doing our best. We're doing our best with our son. We're doing our best with our work. We're doing our best with each other. That's all we can do, is just keep doing our best and just try to accept that this is the way things are. And at some point it'll be different. And for now, like, we can't do any better than what we're doing.
Right.
So
I kind of am telling myself that too, like not, I guess it's important, I think, to have goals, but to make them attainable. And some of our goals are just things that we thought were going to happen in 2020 just aren't going to happen from things that are outside of our control. So that's something that I'm having to tell myself too, like, hey, you're doing, like, today was a good day, or hey, we're having fun today. Like, cause I have a 8-year-old and a 3-year-old daughters too, like actually in Austin today was really beautiful. We went out on a scooter and bike ride and had a really good time and stuff like that, and you gotta take those moments and be like, okay, well, I think an old way of thinking is like, oh, well, maybe this isn't, I'm always thinking what's the best use of my time, or like, maybe if it's during the daytime, like, oh, I don't want to take a long lunch, or, oh, I want to push myself to do harder or something like that. But now it's almost like if you have the opportunity to do something good, then you just do that in that moment, and then think, like you're saying, like, hey, I'm doing the best I can, and actually this best is pretty good,
Yeah, I've caught myself doing stuff in a good way, stuff I wouldn't have taken time to do. So like in the afternoons, the last couple of days, we just had Easter weekend. We're not like big Easter celebrating kind of stuff, but it's Easter, right? It's candy and cake and fun stuff. And we did an Easter egg hunt in the backyard on Sunday, and then again on Monday, and again on Tuesday. And that's been kind of our, like, oh, let's hide the eggs. And yesterday, for off and on in between meetings and calls, I'd spend 30 minutes, and we go out and do, he'd hide the eggs and I have to find them, and I'd hide the eggs and he'd have to find them. And that was just, in the middle of the day, which, any other normal Tuesday at 2:30, I wouldn't be in my backyard hiding Easter eggs, because I'd be, if I was between calls, I'd probably be trying to check messages or work on a project or talking to my assistant or doing whatever. So, Sunday night, on Easter night, we just got a little portable, I don't know if it's portable, it's like a little fire pit. You just put a couple logs in it and get a fire going. And we just spun that thing up on Easter night and got some marshmallows and hung out and roasted marshmallows in our backyard. Like, never done that before.
Yeah,
but because of all this,
really
my
simple,
wife had been wanting to get one of those. And so she ordered one, it showed up, we opened it up and got some logs and roasted marshmallows. Like, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, awesome. So since you are on the calls with a lot of business leaders, and you specialize in helping startups, and you have
we work with B2B tech companies, so startups that are looking to grow, usually to the first $1 million in revenue or getting from 1 to 10 in revenue. So these are high paced environments, seed funded, Series A funded companies that have relatively short runways that need to grow fast.
Right. So what are y'all talking about? I mean, over this last month, since everybody, if you're a startup founder, you're looking at the runway, their pipeline has changed, everything's changed. And there's probably a lot of people that are feeling a lot of anxiety about that. Has there been anything that you found that's really helping the startup founders sleep better at night or lower their anxiety?
Well, I don't know if anything can lower the anxiety for a startup founder. Not even me. But what we found is overall, our clients have been for the most part, 90% of them, their business is either stable through all this or even accelerating. And a lot of that is because they're tech companies and they're already have innovative solutions. And so a lot of the industries they're selling to, like manufacturing or healthcare or telecom or heavy industry, these are industries and companies that have made big cuts in people, or the people are working from home and the process that they had previously just doesn't work anymore. And so the only way to fill that gap is through new tech, through new technology. So we've actually seen a lot of the teams that we work with are accelerating. I was just looking at our Slack channel, and over the last 4 days, 4 different teams all closed deals. Like one company in the healthcare sector closed, they've been operating in India for a couple of years, came to the US, they just signed their first US customer for a 3-year deal. Another one just closed a $120,000 a year deal with a bank. Another one signed a big consulting company as a contract. So they're just seeing that because they're in tech and they're startups and innovative, that a lot of the industries they're selling to, they need this technology now more than ever. Yeah. So now that said, there are some things that are hard about this, right? Whether it's work from home, disaggregated teams, all of a sudden, some of them already had disaggregated teams, and remote teams, so it wasn't a big of a shift. But overall, the framework that we've been working with our founders is kind of like 3 big things. So number 1 is focus. So focus your team, focus on your customers, and focus on your niche. So just that's step 1. Whenever you get this external shock to the system and you feel the anxiety, the first thing that happens is you get scattered and you're like, okay, what do I do? So when you're feeling scattered, you focus. And those 3 areas, team, customers, niche, you get everybody focused on those things, then that helps you get a direction on where to go. So that's step 1. Step 2 is then saying, okay, well, I'm feeling anxious, so we all go into defensive mode, or we sort of try to conserve. Mm-hmm. And so there's a need, you have to cut expenses. Sometimes you have to make hard decisions and let people go, or you have to cut back on an office space and decide, okay, we're not going to work from WeWork anymore because we're all remote now, and that's just the way it's going to be, right? So we get to save money. So, but at some point you have to step forward again. You have to advance. You can't just be in defense all the time. So it's thinking about advancing your cash flows. How do you collect money that's owed to you from customers? How do you reduce burn rate? How do you think about ways of operating the company more efficiently? And then on the sales side, how do I advance the deals that I have in the pipeline? Which ones maybe you have to requalify them? Some of them might still be going. Some of them might be on pause. Some of them might just be lost for for a while. And then the third piece is advance your outreach. So, even if your market isn't buying right now, it doesn't mean you stop prospecting. It doesn't mean you stop doing the outreach to those industries, because at some point, whether it's in 3 months or 6 months or 12 months, when there's an uptick, you want to be positioned and have those relationships, because there's going to be pent up demand. So even if people aren't buying your stuff now, they're going to need to buy it in 3 months or 6 months.
Yeah.
And you want to be positioned in order to do that. So number one is focus. Number two is advance. And number three is solve. So a lot of people, the first couple of weeks of this whole COVID situation, there was a sense, and I was reading a lot of this on LinkedIn. It's like, oh, it feels weird to sell right now. It's kind of, I got an email from somebody at a startup, like, it feels kind of icky to sell because I know everybody's in doom and gloom mode. And my response is like, well, don't sell, just solve problems. Like, you should be doing this anyway. Like, every day you're talking to prospective customers, you shouldn't be selling them. You should be showing them how you solve problems.
Yeah.
So communicate with them, educate them, navigate the problem with them. And then you'll be in a position where they're going to want to give you money. You're not going to have to do any real selling. So if you focus, advance, and solve, that's the framework that we've been operating under with all of our clients. And it's a framework that it's like gives them a grounding on, like, if they're lost in what they should be doing every day or every week, if you come back to that basic framework, are we focused? Are we moving forward? Are we solving problems? If you do those three things, you're going to be just fine.
Okay. Yeah. Do you think that the people that are feeling like, oh, this old process is icky, then maybe all the changes have kind of uncovered the rock that maybe they need to focus on something different anyway, and it's maybe that this has shine the light in a place that they didn't realize that, oh wow, I need to clean this up?
Yeah, it's a big forcing function in a lot of parts of the business, right? So you look at take the cuts, the budget cuts or staff cuts. You say, we have to conserve runway. Well, yeah, you should reduce expenses. You should always be looking to get rid of bloat. Like, okay, so you have $10 million in funding. It's easy to start buying software or hiring people and keeping people on staff that aren't producing, right? So you should be looking at what are costs and what are investments. And so if you're running a startup or any company, you've got a salesperson that's bringing in new accounts, like, you would never get rid of that person.
Yeah.
But if you have a salesperson who's marginally, maybe break even or worse, you can justify, well, we need somebody making calls, we need somebody doing demos, you need somebody doing outreach. So even though they're not producing and they're not hitting quota, at least they're reaching out to the market. So you sort of justify that cost. So this has been a way to really force that decision. It's like, who is producing and who's not. But then on the selling side, you're absolutely right. Like, that's the one thing I tell to everyone. It's like, don't sell, just solve, which is exactly what you should be doing all the time anyway. If you've been batching and blasting for your outreach instead of communicating and problem solving, well, shame on you, right? You shouldn't be doing that stuff. It doesn't matter if it's a COVID world or not, it's a volatile market or not. And so I think it has been a good forcing function for people to realize, like, wow, like, what is our value proposition? Because if I have to go do outreach to somebody and try to get them on the phone, I can't just like send 1,000 emails and hope to get 3 back. Like, I need to be cognizant and empathize with the situation. I need to craft a value proposition statement that makes sense to the person who's getting that email in today's environment. These are all things we should be doing. It just gets magnified when you end up in this volatile market.
Right. So and maybe some people out there that have been caught for whatever reason in a layoff or something like that. Do you have any advice for those people?
I do. Number one is take the same approach that I just said to our startup founders. Focus, advance, and solve. So number one, if you're feeling scattered and you're feeling scared, then just focus in on, like, what can you do today in order to make things better? Like, focus on yourself, focus on your family, make sure everybody is good, everybody is set. Because if that's not good, nothing else is going to be good. Like, if your headspace is screwed up and scattered, then it's going to be hard for you to perform well in a job interview or even send out a quality cover letter. So focus. Advance means, like, go do stuff. If you're feeling anxious, the only way out of the anxiety is through action. And so that means applying for jobs. And that means going in and getting in touch with your network. It means asking for help from people. one of the things I think the reason we got connected is because I said something in a LinkedIn post.
Yeah.
Somebody else's post is like, look, if you need help, just ask people, ping me. I'll do whatever I can. And I've had a couple of people take me up on that. But if you don't ask for help, people don't know to give it to you.
Right.
But if you ask for it, most people would be delighted to help you if they can. And if they can't, most people, if they can't, they'll say, well, I can't help you, but maybe you could try these things. So you have to take that action. And the third thing is then just go out and solve problems, right? Just serve the market. And so there's a woman I spoke with a couple of weeks ago. Never talked to her before, but she took me up on the offer to get some help. And we hopped on the phone for 15 minutes and chatted about her situation. And there's nothing like I didn't have a job for her. It wasn't anything I could, directly do, but I gave her some advice. And one of the things she's been doing is just been very active on LinkedIn. She's been sharing posts, commenting posts, making posts of her own, and just like generally getting involved with the community, like stepping into it and contributing to other people's posts and just being proactive. It just like, I can see her messages, I can see her posts. And that's the sort of, that kind of activity is going to generate the goodwill, because if you have to send 100 resumes to get the one interview and somebody like me goes on LinkedIn and checks you out,
yeah,
and they see like, wow, look at this, like she's on every post and she's commenting this and sharing that and helping other people. Well, that's the kind of person I want on my team, not the person who's like sitting in a shell hoping that this next job is the one that's going to pay the bills.
Right.
So same principles apply. Like the only way through this is to keep moving forward. And I do a lot of trail running and I do ultra marathons. And one of the basic kind of laws that you have to live by on the trail is like get to the next aid station. So if you're at mile 60 and the next aid station is a mile 72, have a 100-mile race, you're at mile 60, don't worry about mile 100 and finishing, just get to the next aid station. Like get station to station is like the mantra, station to station. And getting station to station is really important, but what's even more important is getting out of that station. So you get there and you should like reward yourself and celebrate and have a PB&J and fill up your nutrition bottles. But what happens a lot of times in these races, I see it all the time. It's like 2 a.m. and it's cold and sometimes it's snowing and people are huddled around a fire and they're like supposed to be racing. And my thought is like, what are you doing? Like, yeah, you got here to mile 72, but you still got 38 miles to go. Get the hell out of here, or 28 miles to go. Get out of here. You're almost done. So getting to the next aid station is important, but it's even more important to get the hell out and keep moving, like relentless forward progress.
Yeah.
Just keep moving forward, because there's no progression without movement. So just stay focused, keep moving forward, solve problems for people. And, I know a lot of people have really hard situations. I'm not going to try to be Pollyanna or Tony Robbins or anything like that.
Right.
I know people have tough stuff to work on. But the only advice I can give to those people is like, just even if it's for an hour a day, get focused, do something positive, keep moving, take care of yourself. At least you're going to put yourself in a position in a better position for good things to happen. It's not going to guarantee that things are going to happen, but you'll be in a better position to make them happen.
Yeah. But going back to what you talked about a little while ago is maybe if you are laid off and things are all different now, well, what's your schedule and what are you doing? And maybe your whole day doesn't revolve around doing stuff for job search, but you're getting up, you're getting some exercise, you're taking, like you said, taking care of your family, but keeping a schedule, and then keep moving forward. I mean, I think that there's, I've never been in the military, but I have a friend who's a Marine, and they have a saying that says like, let's just get to lunch. It's like, how do we get to the next meal? If you're going through something tough, it's like, okay, well, give yourself a smaller goal to get to, and just think about like, hey, only got 2 more hours, to get to this and stuff. And sometimes, and that can work for some people, but yeah, it can be a tough time for everybody. And there's, I think everybody's going to get through it, but that, sometimes we build it up in our minds that our problems can be bigger than what they actually are. If we just start taking some action and moving forward, then we find that maybe our problems weren't as bad as we thought that they were. But
yeah, and I think like honestly, not everybody is going to get through it. I mean, some people just aren't, or it's going to take a really long time. And I think it's okay to recognize that, for people to say like, this could take a while.
Yeah.
Right. This sucks. Like, again, like I'm not in that position. So I don't have friends that are in that position directly. I'm fortunate. I have a business that's going fine. My wife has a job where we don't really have any issues, any real trouble. But when I look around, I know that there's some people that it's going to take a while.
Yeah.
And that's where I think like the only advice I could say is like ask for help. Just because whether it's a friend or a family or somebody on LinkedIn, whatever it is, you're only going to get the help if you ask, and you might be surprised.
Yeah.
Just know that there are people out there pulling for you, even if they don't know you. Like I know there's millions of people right now, and there's might be one person listening to this or watching this video or listening to this message. Like I've never met that person. I have no idea what it's like. Maybe it's a single mom with 4 kids and their husband is left for whatever reason. And they just lost their job. Like I will never, ever know what that's like. But I want that person that's listening to this to know I'm pulling for you. And there are other people pulling for you. We know that you're there. People know you're there, even if they don't see you. And just know that you can ask for help, whether it's me or Neil or anybody else. Just know people are pulling for you. And that's the only thing I can say to that person.
Yeah.
And I hope they understand that.
Yeah. Well, and that's a great message. And I think that sometimes too, people are maybe embarrassed to ask for help, but there's a lot of people out there that they actually want to help, or they feel it makes the people that are giving help, or it makes them feel good, but they just don't know how to help people, and if nobody ever asks, then you don't get the opportunity to help them, so yeah. But well, this has been great, Scott.
Cool.
I don't know.
Thanks for inviting me to join you.
Yeah, man. I think is there anything else that you wanted that you're thinking of while you were talking, or anything? I think you're an articulate guy, and your heart's in the right place, and I think you're really focused on it's no mystery why everything's successful for you right now, so because you've been working at it, and you're articulate, and you're setting goals and accomplishing them, so that's great.
I appreciate that. I don't really have anything else at this point. I mean, just if like I said, if you are listening or watching this and you just want some help, like shoot me a note on LinkedIn. I'm easy to find, and I'll do what I can to help you. And if I can't help you, I'll at least do my best to point you in the right direction. Like a lot of the things in my life didn't come directly from one introduction or one action. And like I think about anything from a customers that I've gotten years ago. If I think about, okay, I got that deal with Morgan Stanley. Well, how did I get that deal with Morgan Stanley? And I traced it back, and it was like 9 introductions and 4 conferences ago is how I ended up getting to that deal at Morgan Stanley, selling them data. It's like, wow, like you just don't know what the path is at the time going forward. And so that's why I think it's so important for people just to ask, because I probably don't have the answer. But if I can say, hey, I don't have the answer, but try these 3 things, or go to these 3 people, or check out these 3 blog posts, there might be something else that gets them to the next place, to the next place, to the next place.
Yeah.
And so if I can help at least start that journey for somebody, then I'm happy to do it. So just reach out and ask for help, and I'll do everything I can to help you if I can.
Awesome.